Another fascinating discovery concerning Paleo-Indians, the ancient American Indians. Discovery to rewrite American history because it does not match what we know. New evidence suggests that Native Americans did not come from Japan after analysis of 15,000-year-old teeth. Native Americans believed to have originally come from Japan, Asia around 15,000 years ago. That theory, based mainly on archaeological evidence found at Native American sites, they include stone tools and other artifacts used by the first peoples, and they show similarities to those of the Jomon people. They were a group of people who first lived in Japan from around 14,000 BC to 300 BC. Analysis of their migration across the continent added to the theory. There were suggestions that Native Americans crossed the Bering land bridge through Russia, north of Japan, through Russia and into Alaska, until they reached the northwest coast of America. Now, keeping in mind that 14,000 years ago, that was the age of the last ice age, and also right around the fact that we had the comet impact and the end of the Clovis culture at that time. So the migration to the continent, suggesting North Americans crossed that land bridge, Bering Strait, until they reached the northwest coast of North America through Alaska, Canada, and into the United States. But the Bering Land Bridge was not a bridge as we know it. The world was different 15,000 years ago, with much more water locked up in the icy glaciers are today underwater, not only Bering Strait, but also even the Mediterranean, worldwide. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. The Bering Land Bridge was a piece of dry land about as big as Australia, so it was huge, between Siberia and western Alaska, and this made Asia and North America one continuous expansion of land. It stretched 994 miles from north to south and 2,982 miles from east to west. So it was not small. The new findings published in the journal Paleoamerica have not ruled out that Native Americans still making this journey across the bridge. But the analysis suggests that the first peoples of America did not descend from Japan, or ancient Jomon, as we know, from 14,000 years ago. Their teeth analysis is different. Professor Richard Scott from University of Nevada at Reno and his team of researchers analyzed genetic and skeletal evidence, that is DNA as well. They concluded that the similarity in tools was likely coincidental, as the evidence does not match up. The paper sent to rewrite American Native history analyzed the teeth from Americans, Asians, and Pacific areas, including the Jomon people. Professor Scott said, "We found that the human biology simply does not match up with the archaeological theory." And so what does he mean by that? Exactly did they find? We do not dispute the idea that ancient Americans, Native Americans, arrived via the Northwest Pacific coast, only the theory that they originated with the Jomon people in Japan. And he has a genetic analysis suggesting there's little link between the Jomon people, IK002, and North Americans, and the image that he shows says basal Eastern Eurasians, millions of 24,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, things like this. Now, he says these people who lived in Japan 15,000 years ago are an unlikely source for the indigenous Americans, meaning the Paleo-Americans. Neither the skeletal biology nor the genetics indicate a correlation between Japan and America. So why is it that Native Americans look Asian then? What happened? Professor Scott and his world-leading team have a theory. They say most likely source of the first people appeared to be from Siberia. Okay, only 7% of the Jomon teeth sampled could be linked to the first peoples. Genetic analysis reports a similar pattern. So Siberia, of course, is closer to the Bering land bridge. Okay, so probably that's who crossed over to North America. Co-author Professor Dennis O'Rourke said, this is particularly clear in the distribution of material and paternal lineages which do not overlap between the early Jomon and American populations. So this is based on DNA genetic evidence. This cannot be disputed. He says, plus, recent studies of ancient DNA from Asia reveal that the two people split from a common ancestor at a much earlier time. Professor O'Rourke concluded the Jomon population represents, quote, one of the least likely sources for Native American people of any of the North African populations, end quote. The team noted that they should be careful, cautious. Caution should be applied as the only available teeth and DNA samples for the Jomon people are less than 10,000 years old, which does not precede the arrival of the first people in America. And he says, we assume that they are valid proxies for the incipient Jomon population or the people who made stemmed points in Japan 16 to 15,000 years ago. Now, footprints recently discovered in an ancient lake bed further add to the view that the Native Americans did not originate from Japan. They date back to about 23,000 to 21,000 years ago. Then the footprints were discovered in what is now White Sands National Park in New Mexico. So where did these people come from? Dr. Sally Reynolds, co-author the team that confirmed that footprints were made by humans, and she says that her findings confirm that earlier migrations would have crossed the Bering land bridge. And the discovery shows that when humans first arrived on the continent, Dr. Reynolds said this means that humans migrated into America much earlier, but still via that same route. And it's yet to be confirmed whether the footprints are definitely linked to Native Americans. It should be noted. So this is the map of Beringia. You can see that the whole landmass of Siberia and Alaska, Yukon territories was lush and green. This was, of course, an area of where the mammoths used to roam, and a lot of them have been recently found frozen in the permafrost. So this was an extensive landmass, as we can see. Scientists call it Beringia. This is by Bond Paleodrainage map of Beringia, Yukon Geological Survey. And what the landmass looked like about 18,000 years ago. So humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge to people the Americas, and this is what it looked like. And you can see that, of course, it's very close to the Siberia and Alaska, basically the same land bridge, and down below towards the 7 o'clock position, what we have today is a Kamchatka Peninsula, over 150 volcanoes there, and down towards the right, we have the Aleutian Islands, Bering Strait, but that's a huge landmass. So during the last ice age, people journeyed across this land bridge connecting Asia to North America. The land, of course, is now submerged underwater, but a newly created digital map reveals how the landscape appeared about 18,000 years ago, showing Beringia, the huge region sprawling, including parts of Russia known as Western Beringia, Alaska, called Eastern Beringia, and the ancient land bridge that connected the two was not at all narrow, it was huge, the size of Australia. And the time was nigh for Beringia map, said Geoffrey Bond. He studies the geology of ice age sediments in the Yukon Geological Survey in Canada, and he mapped this out. Yukon Beringia Interceptive Center. He says 2 new data sets recently became available, helping Bond create the new map. So this is fantastic survey, fantastic. He says, although it's now gone, Beringia land bridge persisted for thousands of years, from about 30,000 years ago to 16,000 years ago. So perhaps those ancient Paleo-Indians footprints that they found in white sands in Mexico that are about 23,000 years old are from those people. So according to global sea level estimates, a professor, department head of geosciences, University of Massachusetts, who advised Bond on sea level changes and geography, was one of the many scientists who offered to help him with the making of the map, saying the drop at 30,000 years ago was very rapid, with the buildup of ice sheets over North America. So for most of the time, from about 30,000 to 18,000 years ago, the land bridge was nearly 1,000 kilometers, that's 620 miles wide, in the north-south direction. So that's why, in part, Bond chose to portray Beringia at 18,000 years ago. He said, after that, the ice began to recede and the sea levels began to rise. This is according to Live Science, and also according to Express UK, Charlie Pittock. Please leave your comments about this. I think it's fascinating every time we have something new concerning American archaeology and anthropology, because there's not enough work done on that. A lot of American universities go to foreign countries to do their anthropology and archaeological digs, and they're very successful in finding things. So this is amazing what they found here. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.